So we talk a lot about how to do graphic design, how to make something like in Kittl, or how to do print on demand, but we don't really talk a lot about how we became graphic designers or the path or trajectory you can take to become a graphic designer. And so I thought it'd be interesting for Graham and I to share our stories. Graham's actually just right over here across from me. A little bit of a different setup today, a little bit of a different Coffee with Kittl. You guys really liked the outside edition we did by the fire, so we're trying to figure that out to do more like fireside talks, basically. But I thought this was a good idea to just talk through where our graphic design passion came from, what we were doing before, and maybe that'll help you where you are. So I guess we could just start by like going back and forth, sharing our story, or one of us could go first. Or, I mean, what do you think? Is there something we should address before just kind of diving into our stories? Or
I mean, I think it's always important to address that, like, everybody's story or how they get into design, or if they're wanting to get into design, doesn't have to look a certain way. Like, my journey is different from your journey, is different from Daniel or CJ, our friend's journey. So like, it always looks different, and there's not a set path. Like, everybody gets to, there's not a set path, and there's not also a set end goal. Like, I think that having a set end goal can kind of make things intimidating. So I would think less about having a set end goal and more so just about like starting. If you're not started yet, just focus on starting. I think goal setting is good, but set small goals at first. Don't have the end goal of being your own, like creating your own creative agency and being freelance full time. Like that seems like, even for me, that seems super unachievable. Like, I don't have a client base. I don't have like some of the resources, or maybe even some of the skill sets that I need to do the job. But I think just, okay, my goal is to start. My goal is to go watch some videos or go watch some design principles. Like, I think that's a good starting point. But as far as journey, I don't know if you want to like lead us and start like your journey from like, I was doing no design things, working in a restaurant, to now I'm like the face of Kittl on YouTube,
I guess.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point about starting with expectation. And there's this, like, I definitely didn't have any thoughts or like dreams of like, oh, I'm going to run like a full-time freelance business, or like I'm going to do like freelance graphic design, or like I want to join an agency to do graphic design. That eventually was kind of an aspiration that I had. But there's definitely like a lot more to graphic design, whether it's for graphic design's sake or for like actually doing things on the side, or like just doing it because you like it. I mean, I like to tell the story in how I just kind of stumbled into graphic design, because I was going to college for English. I was like kind of bent on being a teacher. I mean, we both teach percussion, so we had that going for us. We teach marching percussion.
At one time, like, percussion was our full source of income.
Yeah, it was our first full source of income. We were doing like 3 or 4 schools at a time, teaching drums. Like, I was editing papers because as an English major, I joined our like writing center program, and I was editing papers. And I mean, I don't think any graphic design anything was on my mind, like, just at all. I had friends that were doing it. Like, I know David was like a designer, like newspaper editor, design layout person. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I had some other friends that were like doing graphic design at like an agency or a company. And really what sparked my interest was when I was editing these papers. I was like eventually editing like dissertations and master's theses and stuff at the college. And one of them was like, I mean, I can't remember specific details, but one of them was like atrocious. Like, I would get commonly like the wrong font.
Like the way that it looked?
Just the like there was, you know, usually you'll see something like somebody will write a paper and they've used the wrong font. like clearly. Like usually in papers in school, it's Times New Roman.
Well, different, yeah. If you're using like MLA or what did we use at
Turabian, but
yeah,
like,
there was a different font that you had to use for things.
But this one was like several fonts, multiple script fonts that would like, I mean, there was color in the paper at one time. I mean, just stuff that doesn't belong in a master's thesis, of course, or a dissertation. Anyway, I can't remember the specifics, but I remember like looking at it and being like, this is so weird. Like, why have they chosen different fonts here? Like, and then that just kind of like started my random rabbit hole of like, where do fonts come from? Like, I started to have that idea in my head. Like, as I was looking at this paper and going through it, I had never taken the time to go through just Microsoft Word, for example, and just look. I mean, there's a lot of fonts in just Microsoft Word and on your computer. And I never gone through and just looked at them and looked at how they're shaped and formed and stuff like that. And at the time, like in my classes, I was more at the senior level. I was about to graduate. We had like colloquials and like senior projects to do. And I found myself spending a lot of time on formatting a handout, a paper, a project with like perfect sizing for headlines. And I have no education. Like, I wasn't going and looking at it. I was just like, this one should be 14. This one should be 12. This super subtext should be 8. I was just like paying a lot of attention. So anyway, that led me down a rabbit hole of YouTube. And I was just like, when to use certain fonts, I think, something like that. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, I just started that rabbit hole on YouTube, and it led me to The Future, Christo's channel, The Future, no E. Fantastic channel. I can't recommend
what font should I use is a really, really commonly asked question for like anybody getting started. What font do I use?
Yeah, and I don't know if that was the specific one. I remember I was also researching at the same time adjacently like copywriting skills, and like because I was copywriting and editing for like websites, and I had started to notice that a lot of websites looked bad, and I would be like, I could just offer like, I was like, what if I could offer website design with my copy editing or my copywriting or whatever? And so that also led me to The Future.
Yeah.
Like, there were multiple videos I was watching from this one channel, and then I was going down further channels. And eventually I was just like reviewing people's stuff I was doing work for, or like editing tasks, or like finally someone was asking me to like edit a book, and then I was like, do you want me to format the book? I was like, I think I can do a better job. And they were like, yeah. And so like from there, it was really just a passion of me saying like, I think I can do things better. And from there I was like, well, let me see what your book cover looks like. And they were like, okay, it looks like this. And I was like, do you want me to take a crack at it? You know, I think and it was like, it was my own passion of starting to be aware of things around me, like the dinner menu or a street sign or a poster, and being like, this looks maybe not so good.
So it's almost like not initially, it's not even like you had a passion for graphic design. You had a passion for making things better.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I did not research like how to get started with graphic design. That is not what led me to where I am right now. Like, it led me from editing, copywriting, being in the world of lots of text, and me having the passion for how do I make this text more easy to read? Like, scrunched tons of text, not the right size, too much on one page, fonts that don't look super great. How could I make this? That led me to like a copywriting position at where I worked with Megan, and I actually went in and applied for like their newsletter email design, because what happened after I went through,
which is funny because you kind of do that now too.
Kind of, yeah. And I like copyright and stuff. Yeah. So I had gone down that rabbit hole of doing those little itty bitty mini side projects for either acquaintances or past clients of like editing that I was doing. And I really went deep into like learning on YouTube, like bring your own laptop, Adobe Dan or whatever, that guy. Like, I went through all of his stuff. I got Skillshare. I went through like Photoshop tutorials, Illustrator tutorials, and I started making my own portfolio. Like, I made a mock website for like Scooby-Doo merch. I made another website for like I don't know, fake, like a fake shoe reselling brand. I don't know. I just made different stuff. I made like a fake website. I made a fake like poster. I made for whatever. I just made a bunch of stuff. And I took that with me to this interview for this newsletter position. Like, do you have any?
Because you had to have like a portfolio.
Just stuff. Like, can you show me past work? And they were, one of the things on the job posting or whatever was newsletter experience a plus. And I was like, well, I have edited a newsletter. I was editing a newsletter for a ministry through our church. Not at our church, but an acquaintance. And I was like, I have skill formatting and editing and helping publish a newsletter. And I had done some mock ones, like 3-panel, 2-panel, digital newsletter, whatever. And they were fake. Like, they were not real entities, but they looked pretty nice. And so I went in and I showed them that. I was like, here's what I have the capability to do. And I mean, I kind of got hired on the premise of fake work. Not fake in that I don't know how to do it, but it was like, it was not, I guess the point I'm trying to make here.
It wasn't for a client.
No.
It was just a display of your capabilities.
It could have been real. It looked real.
Well, that's what a lot of freelancers do, right?
Yeah, of course.
So there are lots of, I can't remember the names of them. Maybe we can link some after this video and link some resources. But there are websites that will generate design briefs for you.
Yeah. I was doing that. I found a logo design brief website, and it would tell me, luxury, color scheme, name, subline or slogan or whatever, and then it was like it would say like icon or monogram or whatever, and it would just do that brief, and then the same thing for like a poster, and then whatever. And so I was just doing that, and like got hired on the premise of me saying like I can do these things because I showed you I have the technical skills, I can use the tools, all self-taught. I mean, it was probably 3 months of very intense, like after I would do my editing in my little chair in my little dungeon, I was editing like hundreds of pages of text. After I would get done with that, I would just open up YouTube or Skillshare, and just for 3 months I would just go through all of like Adobe Dan's like stuff, Chris Doe's stuff on the future, and I would just learn. And eventually I purchased some courses. Like I did purchase some courses on typography. I purchased a course on website design to get me like more like in advanced stuff, because I was eventually hitting like, is there something I'm missing? Is there more that I could do? Is there a fast track? And to a degree, I think some paid courses can help you do that. Because sometimes you'll end up watching a YouTube video of someone else making it, which can be helpful, but sometimes you need the like slow paced, like, do this with me, go to this panel and click on this thing and watch what happens when this happens in this panel. And if you didn't get it, do it again, or Command Z or whatever you got to do. So I was doing that, and that was my aspiration the whole time, was because I wanted to do more website design, because a lot of websites were bad, especially in the early days. Still a lot of websites that are bad. And so at the job I had previously, that was my goal, was like, how do I get to like the UX department? How do I whatever? And so I just started little by little by little helping with that, and eventually I like basically helped find a client that needed something like that. And I was like, oh, the UX team doesn't have time for this, let me do it. And so I did it, and it worked. And then that's how I became like junior UX designer or whatever. But what led me to Kittl now, and then you can feel free to give your story, because my story is already like 13-14 minutes, is I was getting tired a little bit of web design, UX design. And I was like, I want to get back to like the roots. Like I want to like draw stuff. I want to just make stuff in Illustrator for whatever. I want to make logos. I want to make stuff look vintage. I want to make it look retro. I want to make it look semi-neo-modern, whatever. And so 2020 happened, and I made my own YouTube channel, because somewhere in that trajectory of me going from editing to watching YouTube videos to having a full-time job, I went back to YouTube, and I was like, I just want to do what these people are doing. I just want to like show people how to do this on YouTube and be a full-time YouTuber. Like that was someone asked me shortly, like maybe a year before I left my full-time job, they were like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was like, oh, I'm full-time YouTube for sure. I was like, that's my goal. And so I had started my little YouTube channel, which and it's still
which I am now on.
Yeah, which is still growing currently. Like, it's finally monetized. I post there every once in a while. I do like really vintagey stuff, or I'll show like product reviews of stuff because I like doing it. And that's how some of the wonderful people at Heritage Type found me. Was I did a Heritage Type text tutorial on my channel, and I was just passionate about it. I was passionate about the community, passionate about teaching, passionate about sharing, passionate about holding the traditions of old and where art forms and where type forms and letter forms came from. And that's what's led me here. So now you get to tell your side of like doing a bunch of different stuff and then seeing me do it. And then you're like, yeah, I can do it better.
Yeah, I think we each have our own story of where we were and where we are now, but it's really unique to have us be brothers and ending up in the same place, essentially. Like, yes, technically, like, you are my boss, but we do the same thing. Like, you just, you orchestrate and you organize and you give me video ideas and you help me with scripts and writing, which I'm not really good at. And it's like, it's funny, like, if we fly over to Germany or something, like, they're like the brothers, you know, like they like, they love it. It's almost like,
yeah, it's great.
Gimmicky is not the right word, but just like,
it's familial.
Yeah, it's, they love it.
Yeah, it's like, this is like, that's one thing that I love about obviously working at Kittl, is that, you know, things are very familial, but we take things very seriously. I mean, if you all watching, I mean, just go to the YouTube channel, click on videos, and just scroll. It will endlessly scroll. I mean, there's like 330 plus videos now, and we haven't even been around for that long. So, and that's with more stuff coming out. I mean, we just do an exceptionally large amount of work, but at the same time, we like to like check up on each other, have fun, see how we're doing, like, very familial, very tight knit group, yet we are like, we function very businessy and corporate at the same time. So that's a cool dichotomy.
Well, that's that's our enjoy the ride value, you know, which is cool. Journey wise, I mean, I think everybody likes to think that their journey is unique. I don't think mine is as like captivating as yours. I mean, it could be to somebody.
Yeah, but it could be relatively normal.
Yeah,
like a normal trajectory that other people have.
Yeah. Well, I started like, work wise. I mean, I did the more generic stuff that every like 16, 17, 18-year-old does. Like, I was in the food industry,
Panera.
and then I I was at Panera, and then I worked at like a little bit higher end restaurant here where we live, and then I was at like a car dealership. I wasn't doing sales, but I was doing like, I don't know, like some exchange things. It's basically like when cars come into the service department, like I would print out the information, like what they could get for their car, and like
trade-in value.
Yeah. Trade-in value and like options for cars that they could trade up to that would be like a nice upgrade for them based off of like their purchase history and like their credit score. It's like crazy how much information car dealerships have on you when you buy a car.
It's wild.
Kind of scary. But basically, I would just like run around and like put those packets in cars and stuff. And then every once in a while, like I would have like a call day where I basically just like call people and check up like, how was your service? Like, were you interested?
Oh, okay.
I hated that.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely hated that. Like,
still client facing.
It was still client facing.
Yeah.
Which like, it's okay if you want to be a designer and you don't want to deal with clients. There are like, I just recorded a video today on different ways that you can ways that you can make money with graphic design that are not client facing, because I'm very like work at my own pace in either isolation or with like a partner like you, and not like client facing. Like, if like the
I mean, the work is a little different because the work is for a different type of entity, right? There's a difference of making content for either yourself or for all or for enjoyment or entertainment versus like, this is a demand or a service or a business. I have a customer, they need something from me, I have to like interface with them. Right, I have to get
that's what you're good at, which is good, because we have a project that you're working on right now that I'm going to help you with, but I don't ever have to talk to the client, which is nice, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
I mean, see, maybe we can do a future video on like how to get to the level of working with clients that you want to work with, basically being able to work with clients, because that's where I am now, is like, I'm not going to accept I have an extreme vetting process, and I'm not going to work with a client that, as I told you yesterday, doesn't want something extremely traditional, basically hand drawn, and will let me take a long time to make it. But anyway, we can get to that. I mean, I know Christo has a ton of videos like that on the future as well, but yeah.
Yeah, so I was doing car stuff, and then that led into, I think, like 2020. And so my dad was living, or our dad, sorry. Our dad.
Every time.
Yeah. Was. Can you go tell your dad to go?
Yeah.
Our dad?
All right, yeah.
He was living in Tennessee at the time. And so in like 2020, everything crazy happened. I went out and lived with him for a little bit. And so I wasn't working at the time. And I came back and I was looking for a job essentially. And so what I was doing is I took a job doing like carpentry with a buddy of ours at the church that we were at the time. His dad owned a carpentry business doing like, it was very wide range, like flooring, cabinets, like cabinets, decks. We would do like whole, not whole home remodels, but like whole sections of homes. Like we would remodel a whole kitchen or a whole bathroom or whole living space.
Sure.
I think one house actually did have a whole full remodel where it was like new floors, new paint, new kitchen.
You did all of it?
All of it. Well, not framing. We didn't change the layout. We did take out one wall. We had to take out one wall.
You took out a wall?
We took out a wall in the... It was really stupid. Like the way that this living room was laid out is basically like the living room. If you can imagine the living room with a couch facing this way with a TV, and then there was a wall here that led to bedrooms and like a bathroom, and then like it goes this way to the stairs. But we just walked in and we was like, that wall shouldn't be there, so we knocked it out. But
nice.
we had to put a steel beam.
Yeah, to keep the
So like it's I don't know what I mean, obviously Jim would know, but I don't know what the code is, but it's like some length times some weight equals like, for this to be at this code, you have to put a steel beam in.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can do you can do like wood, but over a certain load bearing capacity, it's not safe. So you have to put steel in there. So we did a lot of stuff like that. I mean, it was cool. Like I made good money, and like construction people are just hilarious. Like Jim was hilarious. I think I gathered a lot of my like sense of humor over working with him. Like a lot of the things that I still say now, and like a lot of the things that I think are funny, like grew from working with Jim, because he's just a really, really funny dude. I was just like a plus to the working environment, I guess. But after a time, I was kind of like, I'm a little tired of this. Like I'm a little tired of getting up at 5 or 6 a.m. to drive like to another county or something, because like these jobs, like when you're bidding construction jobs, they're at a larger value, but that means that you're at them for longer. And so like you have to expand your circle of where you're willing to go for work, because the projects are larger. And if you keep your circle small, that means that you're competing with more people in the same area. So you want to like go outward, and that
rural areas and outskirts, and
that's where a lot of people have like the money, or like a lot of the older homes naturally are in more rural areas, which means we need to travel out there to do it. So I got a little tired of that, and then I think just randomly I was at some church event, and Dan approached me, which was the media director at the college that I was at the time. It was essentially like, hey, we're looking for like an event production person. So basically just like any event that went on the school, whether it was like live chapels, or just a conference, or small debates, or this room needs audio or like AV at this time versus this time different. We had a bunch of different event rooms, and like classroom tech was under our department, video editing was under our department, which was weird that video editing wasn't under comms, but we had to like deal with comms back and forth quite a bit to collaborate on stuff. So I started doing the events team because I did take a pay cut, but for me it was worth it to not have to like not work. Saying, oh, I don't have to work as hard is not correct, but it's like it's a different type of work. I was ready for a different type of
schedule.
Work. Yeah, different schedule, different type of work, something that's a little less super, super hard one day and then super, super easy one day, just like more steady and not as far away, which bleeds into not having to get up so early. Cause like I lived on campus, so I just walked over to the media services department and worked, which was nice. So I was doing event production for a time, and I think I did that for like between 6 and 9 months. And Dan, for some reason, saw randomly that I had like an eye. Like he noticed that I had an eye for creative things. I think we were doing like a video shoot that was super big, and he needed like event production to help like set up lights or something. And he said, you did two things that caught my eye, is that you suggested, wouldn't this light look better here? And then we tried it and it made the subject look a lot better. And then the second thing, which was actually it had like a smaller implication up front, but a larger implication later, was like, you looked at the shot before we started recording and noticed that there was a water bottle in it, and like went over there and moved it. Which is super small in the moment, but we have that footage. We had that person come and record for 30 minutes, and we go back and we do the footage. There's a water bottle in it. So we have to, like, if the subject is not moving in front of behind, we can mask the water bottle like out of the video, which is relatively, but you never want to do that.
No.
You always want to make it easiest up front when you're recording, have the cleanest audio, have the cleanest video, and the best take to take into editing, so that you can save yourself a lot of pain and trouble. So for the next 6 months, I was moved to the editing team, which then I had access to the Creative Cloud under the school's subscription and on my laptop. Little side banter, I guess, is I also started working for his production company. Like he was the media services director, but he also had a production company, and so I would go on the road with him. We would go to like Nashville or Texas, Colorado, California. I've been to like I think 7 or 8 states with Dan, doing big conferences, and I would stage manage for them. So basically I would just like, they'd have panelists or lots of speakers, and I would mic them up, get them ready to go on stage. That was really fun. I made a lot of good money, but that was also kind of hard because
you're away all the time.
I'm not huge on traveling. I mean, that I want to sleep in my own bed. I want to like take a shower in my own shower, and like be able to, like, when I'm done hanging out with people or done working, I want to be able to retreat and do my own thing in my nest, like in my environment. So money was good. Growing that relationship with Dan was amazing because he's still one of my mentors now. Like, amazing guy, amazing in the production world, and great like business knowledge. So if I ever have a question, I can go to him. So it's like I made these little connections over time, even though I had not even gotten to graphic design yet. But it all makes sense in the end. Like, the story makes sense when you look back and you connect the lines. So essentially, at that point, I had access to the Creative Suite, and I downloaded Photoshop because I had already been using Premiere, and I was learning the basics at the time. I had an eye for it. Like, I knew initially that you don't want just like, you can take a static shot and then you can make 2 cuts of it. So each off point you're making, you can cut in and out, and that adds a lot of dynamic to the video. I learned how to color videos to make them look better, or adjust like the contrast, brightness, or something like in post to make something more attractive. Then it got a little bit more hardcore. I was using After Effects because we wanted to create like custom lower thirds or animations for a video series or a teaching series that like comms would pitch a vision for us, or that comms would send us like an Illustrator file with layers. And I would put that into After Effects, and I would animate each individual layer to make an animation for this video series. And like, they loved it. Like, Dan loved it, comms loved it, they ate it up. And so that was my main thing for the remainder 3 months that I was at that department, was doing animation. Which was very useful for my next job. So I got more into Photoshop because I was like, animation is fun, but I'm a person that likes to spend a little bit less time on each project. Like, I like to do things like super quick and fire off a lot of things. And so I downloaded Photoshop, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what to create. And so essentially I had this idea to just go to Pinterest, type in like cool posters or like church graphic design, because at the time I was trying to land a church graphic design gig. Because I noticed like at the church that we were going to at the time, and surrounding churches, that like some of the graphics could use some work. And like, even though I wasn't a professional at the time, I feel like I had an eye enough to kind of notice when things were bad.
Yeah.
Like I think it's like
the difference between bad and good is easier to agree on. The difference between good and great is a lot more perhaps subjective. I actually had the idea to do a video on this soon, on like the difference between good and great.
Yeah, also
design.
like the difference between bad and good is easier to point out, easier to define.
I think the effect on people is also easier understood or to notice. Like if a movie poster looks bad, non-designers will look at it and be like, oh, it's atrocious, right? Even like just everyday consumers make choices on stuff they want to buy or they want to see or they want to look at.
And then it's funny because a movie poster that can be good in the eye of the general consumer, a graphic designer will look at and be like, ugh, you know?
Maybe. It depends. It depends. I mean, I think now they all generally follow a format. But yeah, I would say like the difference between good and bad is there. We don't have to debate so hard on that. Like, at some point, yes, subjectivity comes into play, and if you think it's good, then that's fine. You can think it's good. But
I would say bad to good is objective, and then good to great is subjective.
Yeah, there's always going to be some subjectiveness there, and also the conversation of art for art's sake at some point, and or just making silly things because it's silly and fun. But yeah, I would say that if we're talking about design in so much that it solves a problem, like graphic design is that it is created, intended to communicate, solve a pain point, provide information. Yes, there are levels, there are rules, there are guidelines, there are principles that we follow to best express and display that information
so that you're not creating another problem.
Correct.
Like bad design can also create an extra problem for you. Like your first problem is we don't have a visual for this and we need a visual that communicates what we need to communicate. And then the second problem that arises if you have bad design is now the imaging and the branding and the awareness of this is bad. Like now people know what it is, which you've checked the box on that, but people think it's bad. So you've created two problems for yourself if you've not put some sort of effort up front to make things look a little better.
Yeah, and I guess that also kind of comes back to where my passion for it came from. Was I was in bookstores and looking around, and I was like, these covers, like, they're bad. I was like, this, like, some of them are good. I mean, you can tell money was spent on them,
we were in the bookstore the other day, and I was actually noticing how much better book covers have gotten.
Yeah, I think
they've gotten a lot better.
Well, a lot of people have moved to just text. I mean, it's a big thumbnail. That's all it is. Book cover is a big thumbnail, just like YouTube. But it's funny. I forgot to mention how I was mentioning, like, I was spending a couple months learning graphic design on, like, Illustrator, Photoshop, whatever. I was using a bunch of tools, Figma, XD, whatever. Or I don't even think I was using Figma yet. But you got access to the cloud from your work. I was using a buddy's laptop. I was using David's second laptop, the roommate I had. And eventually I was like, I had looked it up because I couldn't afford it at that time. I mean, I was barely like paying rent and gas and traveling to all these schools to teach percussion. I mean, it was keeping me afloat, but it wasn't certainly a full-time-esque salary. And eventually I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's really expensive. But then I saw that typically with a cloud, you get multiple seats, multiple licenses. So I asked him, I was like, can I put this on my laptop? So he gave me his second seat for probably a year. And that's what I used, like, until I was able to get a job. And then I had the cloud under the agency. But sometimes it's just what you got to do. Like you can find friends that can help you and or let you use stuff. You can ask and get trials. You can start with software like Kittl.
Well,
that's
free.
I was about to say,
that's why it's good to like
get you don't have to get the $50, or I think it's $53 now or something. They raise it like every year.
It's like 60 something now.
Okay, well, dang. when you can just like, you don't have to do that to get in and start, unless that's like the industry that you want to be in, is like, you know, into the Spider-Verse level Photoshop animation and coloring and stuff. But like, you can just use Kittl, get in there and learn the principles of design that you need to learn. Like, you don't need to, I was writing about this yesterday. Like, just because you know how to use a tool doesn't mean you're a master at it. Like, you can know how layers work in Photoshop, or you can add a bunch of crap in a project. It's not going to make it super nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, knowing how to use a tool and then knowing how to use a tool to help you or like to your advantage,
just knowing
are two
the
different
principles.
things.
Yeah, is like what's going to provide you with more value, and also just always striving to be better the next time. Is like, okay, this was pretty good. This is all I have time for this. What can be good the next time? You know what I mean? And if you ever reach that threshold, then there's danger there and you need to reevaluate. But yeah, I would say that story-wise, obviously we have very different. I came from like, I would say
I'm not even done with my story.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Okay.
I forgot.
Yeah. So I was still at school, got the license, started doing stuff with Pinterest.
Oh yeah, and then you were looking at the church,
the
church position.
Yeah.
Right?
So basically, I started following like in tandem with like getting the software downloaded and looking at Pinterest and stuff. Like, I was looking for more resources, so I started following other designers on like just Instagram essentially, and I was like seeing what they were doing, and it was really cool because they would get reposted by these big design accounts, and I thought that there was like some clout around that, and I did get a little bit I did get a little bit absorbed in the clout of like getting reposted by accounts and like other designers knowing you, which is like cool, I guess, but it doesn't serve you really in a way. Like, it doesn't benefit you other than like, I guess, getting the experience and the knowledge and encouragement serves you. But like, I kind of made it an idol at the time, was like trying to design better so that I could get reposted versus designing better so that I could get to my end goal. But nonetheless, me doing that and getting reposted by some of these accounts caught the eye of my boss at the job I was working at before Kittl, and basically just DM'd me and said like, hey, are you looking for work? Like, I can give you like 20 hours a week worth of work. We're a service that does church work, like subscription based, like video editing, graphic design, and all kinds of stuff. So client would log in, they would have a dashboard, they would submit projects, and it was all unlimited, which at times was nice for the client and sucked for us, you know, because it just created a massive headache. And we did a lot of manipulating of like different policy guides and stuff like that, essentially to help them and make sure that they get what they want, but also to protect us, which was the difficulty, and like trying to figure out how to you have to train your clients. Like you like, if it's a one-off, you don't, and you just determine if you want to work with them or not.
Sure.
But if this is like a retainer,
well, you have to educate them.
You have to educate them on how to send you a brief. You have to tell them title the brief, tell me what sizes you need, what kind of project this is, and like freaking attach references so I know ballpark what you want this to look like.
Sure.
And so I spent a year and a half, almost 2 years doing that. And it was like amazing experience. Like, I didn't sleep a ton and I got a lot of headaches and drank a lot of coffee. But I mean, I think I cranked out, by the time I was done, I think I cranked out like 3,000 projects in 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was video, that was animation, that was bumpers, like for sermon series, that was social media stuff. So it's just like everything. And so like that, particularly the video editing, and well, not even particularly, because both the video editing skills, knowledge, and the graphic design knowledge makes it me be able to do what I'm doing now, because it would be inefficient if I had one and not the other. Because yes, we have a video editor that helps us with stuff, but if she's unavailable,
what are we going to do?
I can edit something.
Exactly.
Or if we have something that we have a really specific vision on, it makes more sense. We just do it.
Yeah.
And you can just come over and sit over here and we just do it.
Yeah.
And then we make it look like what we like, instead of having to communicate to her, make this at this timestamp, this timestamp, this timestamp, this timestamp.
Exactly.
It would just waste a lot of time, essentially.
I struggle, and many people will, with what's more important, what's more time efficient? Can I just do it myself, or do I need to write a brief? And I honestly think that that's where a lot of influence in people beginning graphic design. What's going to cost me less and or make this more efficient, to try to write this page or 2-page long brief with references and examples to try to get exactly what I want for this like invitation card or this brief or whatever. And I know you can just use a template or buy a template, but maybe we use a more specific example. Maybe someone's starting a clothing brand, okay, and they need a very specific t-shirt design. Like, at some point, people that may have an eye or may have some previous knowledge or training is like, I'll just learn how to do this myself so that I can do it endlessly for myself, as opposed to write a brief every single time. And then video editing is like the ultimate exacerbated version of that, is like, what's more cost effective and time effective? If I just shoot, record, edit, and do my vision, or do I need to explain to someone else how they need to do it? There are more
touch points of communication that could be lost in translation with video editing. Like,
sure, exactly. As opposed to a static graphic.
Design.
Yes, but still, you see my point in like where I think a lot of people will want to do something and want to know how to do it, instead of like trying to give someone else the reins and continue to, because I think about when I was at the agency, the amount of work I did that was back and forth, whether it was web design or a logo design or a branding project. I mean, it's just endlessly back and forth. It's like, we're not getting there. So why don't you just do it? You know what I mean? Like, if you, Mr. Client, if you have such a fantastic vision, just learn graphic design and do it yourself. Now, I mean, that's obviously a very specific, edgy, being a little silly point, but if we if we just decrease that down to like the personal or the small business level, like sometimes it is like practical to be like, I'm going to figure out how to do this myself. And even if I don't design everything for what we do, I have the language to be able to express it to someone so that they know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just, there's different levels to this. And I think that, I mean, there's so many different paths, but
the resolution to where I am now essentially is I was in that job and pretty stressed out, and obviously you're my brother and somebody that I can vent to. So like, we had created our own Slack channel. Like, you obviously have a Slack for Kittl, and I had one for the company that I was working at. And I was like, we're wasting time trying to send files to each other, because we were also doing side gigs together or sending each other work. Like, it's wasting time, and like iMessage is not at all good for sending files. So we just created like a Slack channel called the Wilson Boys.
Yeah.
And that's how we would communicate all day long about like, this is giving me a headache, or like, what are you doing today? Or like, hey, look at this thing that I made, or like pee poo 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 pee 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 pee, like just random.
Yeah.
Sending each other funny stuff. Because we weren't, obviously I was working at home and you were working at home. So we weren't in the same office at the time. And you slacked me one day and was like, hey, do you think that you would want to work at Kittl? And I was like, I mean, that sounds slightly better than what I'm doing right now. What would I be doing? And you said, well, you would do what I do. You would make videos. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds a lot better than what I'm doing right now, not just slightly. And so there was like, I don't know, was it like a month or something? Like, I did a trial video, and I had to essentially be patient for like a month and a half, because like, you were on vacation, and then the person that would have made the decision of whether I came on or not was on vacation. And then there was like some sort of like week where like there was a bunch of people in the office, and like not a lot of delegation for this kind of thing could be handled at the time. And so like, I basically just had to be patient. And then randomly you were like, okay, wait, you slacked me. I remember you slacked me, and you were like, we're in the clear, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, I just went for a walk. I was like, so happy. And then like scheduled like the onboarding and everything. And I've been here for, is it 4 months?
Something like that.
Now?
Yeah.
3 or 4 months. So
all from carpentry to setting up microphones.
I like the way that you said that you like stumbled into it. Like, I mean, it essentially like fell in my lap, because something to note that's important that I didn't know originally is I never finished college. Like, I dropped out at a certain point because I was like, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I know that I don't need whatever degree I'm in right now to do what I want to do, because I just want to do something creative and I don't care what it is, essentially, at the time. Like, I could operate a camera, I could do event production, I could try to get like really beastly at photography and do that kind of thing. I could try to do graphic design, I could do video editing, I could do like some side gigs or asset creation or stuff. I was like, I just want to do something that doesn't require me writing papers. And so it was like, I wanted to quit college, but I didn't just dip out and like call it quits. I mean, I went to like the dean of the school and essentially like explained my situations, and he was like, yeah, you don't need this. And that was like my validation for, okay, go for it, drop out. And I continued to work for the school that I had just dropped out of as well for Dan. And so it's like, it's not like I was out of money, but I didn't like my path did not require a degree of me to have a job that brought me sufficient income to make a living. Like, I'm in a career now and I don't have a degree. So I think it's important for people to be encouraged, especially in the creative space, that like it is helpful for some people, if that's the way that you learn, to go to a design school, take a design course, do an online academy or something like that. But if you're the person that hates like schedules or being locked into something that controls you the way that like a course or a school would control your time, like there are ways that you can learn aside from that, like YouTube.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. Of course, we have so much content, so much information. We actually have a Coffee with Kittl talking about whether or not you need to go to design school. This is kind of just a precursor, I guess, to how you probably can guess how that video is going to go. But I hope you enjoyed this conversation of just us kind of giving our stories. I hope it's encouraging or perhaps inspirational, that like we have no formal training other than just hard work and digging in and going through endless videos and purchasing courses on and stuff like that. Like, I hope that if that's the route that you want to take, or if you have a passion for making things look better, kind of like I did, whether it's a specific niche product, maybe like I said, book covers or shirts or posters or like church graphics, like Graham said, I hope that you follow that, and I hope that we can help you with that through Kittl, through our education, through our tutorials, everything like that. Of course, don't forget to, 1, check out the other videos, 2, like this video and share it with someone that you believe this would be influential for or just enjoyable to watch. And don't forget to subscribe. Please, just hit the subscribe button. There are so many of our viewers that are not subscribed, even returning viewers. I think it's like 70 or 80% are watching and liking and commenting on our videos, but don't subscribe. And it's very interesting.
It's one more button.
I don't know.
It's one more button.
I don't know. I mean, it's like, it doesn't cost you anything to hit the subscribe button. And if you don't want a bunch of notifications, just don't turn the notifications on, but stay subscribed. Anyway, that's enough about that. Just hit the subscribe button. It's not red anymore, but it's either white or black, depending on what your UI is set to. Hit it. It helps us out so much. It helps us out a ton. It helps us continue to create more content like this.
Help us hit our 50K goal.
Yeah, we need to get to 50K ASAP because I want to give stuff away. Okay,
help me.
Help you. Yeah, help me to help you to help them. But yeah, like, we're on our way to 50K. We want to blast through that to 100K and beyond, just to reach as many people as we can, because we care about design education and free design education. So that's something on the back burner for us at Kittl, is crafting tons of courses that will be available for everyone to get in, learn at their own pace, learn different niches, t-shirt design, poster design, graphics, whatever you want, freelance. We'll even have a business section if you want to get into the businessy side. That's on our trajectory, and if you help us by subscribing, liking, commenting, all of these things help in that. So enough about that. Let us know your comments down below, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.